Let's all get a songbook and turn to page 781. 781. We'll sing verses 1, 3, and 4 tonight. 1, 3, and 4. Face to face with Christ my Savior, face to face, what will it be? When with rapture I behold Him, Jesus Christ, who died for me. Face to face I shall behold Him, far beyond the starry sky. Face to face in all His glory, I shall see Him by and by. What rejoicing in His presence, when I banish grief and pain, when the crooked ways are straightened and the dark things shall be plain. Face to face I shall behold Him, far beyond the starry sky. Face to face in all His glory, I shall see Him by and by. Face to face, oh blissful moment, face to face to see and know, face to face with my Redeemer, Jesus Christ, who loves me so. Face to face I shall behold Him, far beyond the starry sky. Face to face in all His glory, I shall see Him by and by. Brother Jeff Bean, would you open with a word of prayer, please? Man, well, it's good to see everybody here tonight. And we're back waiting for spring again. We have a couple warm days, then it gets cold. Now, what happens this time of year is everybody starts getting colds because the weather changes and then things starts blooming out and everybody starts, so it won't be long till I won't have a voice and that's just the way it happens every year. But for now, we're doing good, and we're glad you're here tonight with us. We do have new prayer lists. If you didn't get one, I think I've seen Brother Rich passing them around. So we'll try to see if there's anything we need to update on them. I've added some things on the write-ins after I made the list. Brother Rance's brother Arnold Tackett, I think he said he had 3 stents put in today, had a heart attack, and 3 stents put in after that, but seems to be doing much better now. So put him on there. Then the Hilbert family, Dennis Hilbert, many of you remember, he sat over here to the right, and he's only been saved just a few months, but he passed away, and so I have his funeral on Saturday. So if you'd pray for that family, and he knew it was coming, but it hit him kind of fast. He was just 3 weeks ago. He was here, said he was feeling good, and then I guess when he went home that week is when everything kind of caught up with him. So, but he was ready to go. and but his family needs a lot of prayers. They're going through a pretty tough time. And then Miss Martha Rogers, Mary's sister, J.C.'s wife, she's in right now in Terre Haute Hospital getting checked out to see if she's got heart trouble, see if she's got bronchitis, see if she's got something going on, see if she's got pneumonia. I don't know, but she's having chest pain, so she's down there being checked out. Those are three things I put on just this afternoon. Anything else going on anywhere? Yes, ma'am? Yeah. How is he doing? Really? Also, Sister Maggie is home. She was supposed to have a hip replacement or a knee replacement, on the 3rd, which that didn't happen because she'd been in with congestive heart failure, but she is home recovering and should be back before long, but I imagine that other surgery will be put off down the road for a while. And for those of you, yes, ma'am? May 23rd. Okay, I've got it up here, just don't have the date, so. Now, did you go in and pick one out, or they let you do that? And yeah. Yeah, if you're one of the seed line people, we still don't have covers, but we have 2 staplers over there, and everything that people collated last time. Somebody's got an hour they want to stop by or want to do something, and they're bored. Come on down and you can staple. If you know how to staple, if you don't know how to staple, see my wife. She can show you how, because I've never stapled. I'll get it all messed up. But some of these ladies have, and some of these men have, but I've not. I wanted to, but there was candy over here, and the staplers was over here, so I sat over here by the candy and put together John and Romans. That makes good sense for me. Yes, sir. Okay. I'll find it here in a second. How come okay, I see it now. Just blind one eye, I can't see out of the other one. Yes, sir? Okay, so that's Bennett family? Okay. And since we use the word Bennett, that's close to Benson. Have anybody talked to the Bensons? What's going on with them? I must have got my dates wrong. I thought he said they would be back the 1st of May. They are back? Okay. Yes, ma'am? You doing all right? We have Mrs. Lane there at the top, and she seems to be doing well. She's got more grit to her than most anybody I know. If it was me and somebody cut off part of my leg, I'd be in a wheelchair as long as I could. She's going to walk with that walker, and she's just Very tough person. Yes, ma'am? Okay. Nancy, I talked to Nancy Schottmeyer today. I think she has one more treatment and then she has a surgery, but she's actually feeling pretty good right now. But she said it does just sort of all of a sudden just get really weak. And do I not have her? How did we get her off the list, or am I just not seeing her? Okay. Okay, yeah, we got her over there. Yes, ma'am. That's, yeah. He gets that from grandma. Yeah. Okay. Michelle Miller. That's not good when they come back several times. Now, I should have repeated that because there's people at home and they don't know what you said. So we put Michelle Miller on the cancer list. I think I said the Bennett family that we put on the write-ins, but if I didn't, then for those who's listening, they can put them on. This is going to be a big Sunday, I'm hoping. It's Mother's Day, so I don't know. For years I tried to plan what we was going to do, and other people has taken that over, and I'm hoping it goes well. But it always goes well for me now because I don't have to try to think of everything, and I usually go way behind when I remember it, and so I don't know what all they've got planned, but I expect something good, and hoping there'll be a lot of moms here. So I'll preach a really mean message on the mean. In fact, I found a little story about the fellow. He talked about how he had the meanest mom in the world. I may tell that story. I don't know, but we're looking forward to it. Mother's Day. The Lord's been blessing us with a full house. You see people, invite them, tell them to come down and see what's going on. Tell them if we can get the place full and stay full for a few weeks, we'll start building. I don't know about that, but we may have to one of these days. Won't be long. June, we're going to start putting in the parking lot. Then you'll have a little more room to park, a little better walk. Be in good shape then. Brother Rance? Fourteen great grandkids, huh? Rance, when they get in first grade, we got to get them off here. Well, when they get big enough, they come in and mark their name off themselves. Okay, well, oh, there we got a hand over here. Mike Herskadal is doing better. Um, I can't remember the name of that disease that he has that pretty well kept him from walking for a long time, and it started again. But this time they started treatments quicker, and he's got it. The last I heard, he was doing fairly well. I mean, he still has. I don't know how to describe what it is, but Rance's son-in-law had it at one time too. The same thing. Dave Brinkman had it. Yeah, but he's doing better. And who was the other one you was asking about? Yeah. He was the one that was hollering at Paxton. So his throat's working good now. Okay, let's open our Bibles tonight to Matthew chapter number 11. Matthew chapter 11. I get to reading dealing with one subject, and I run across another subject, so I just take some notes on it. And this is about this fellow named John the Baptist tonight. Everybody knows the story, but it's similar to what happens in our life. I've entitled it just When Things Go Wrong. And if you look there in Matthew 11, we'll start down in verse number 2. So now it says, "Now when John had heard in the prison the works of Christ, he sent two of his disciples and said unto him, Art thou he that should come, or do we look for another? Jesus answered and said unto them, Go and show John again those things which ye do hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk, and lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, the dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. And blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me. And as he departed, Jesus began to say unto the multitudes concerning John, What went ye out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken with the wind? But what went ye out for to see? A man clothed in soft raiment? Behold, they that wear soft clothing are in kings' houses. But what went ye out for to see? A prophet. Yea, I say unto you, and more than a prophet. For this is he of whom it is written, Behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare thy way before thee. Verily I say unto you, among them that are born of women, there hath not risen a greater than John the Baptist. Notwithstanding, he that is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he." So I read that story, and there's more to it, but we'll stop there. But dealing with things, I have found that, and I will get to that in just a little bit, but if you've been saved very long, there's somewhere in your life that something has caused you to doubt. Now, maybe it's caused you to doubt whether or not you're really saved. A lot of people have that at some time in their life after they've been saved. Or maybe you doubt whether God cares, what's going on. And I would say this, it is a great blessing to know you're on your way to heaven. It's a great blessing to be saved. But that doesn't change the fact that we live in a world that's under a curse. And things go wrong, and plans fail, and we set goals, and sometimes the outcome of those goals are not what we'd hoped, and tragedy strikes, and death takes its toll on us. And pain is a part of everyday life. We don't like to think of it that way, and I preach a lot of messages along this line just simply because we need to be reminded so that when it does happen, we don't fail God, we don't give up, we don't get upset, but it's just part of everyday life, and Christianity is not all that some people claim it to be. I mean, it doesn't do everything that some people say it will do, and so the fact that we know we can have joy in trials and that God works all things together for good, we know that, but sometimes we don't see it. Sometimes when things are happening, I don't see that everything's working for good. And so some days our faith kind of wanes and we wonder where God is. Well, here's John the Baptist. According to Jesus there in verse number 11, among men born of women, it said there's none greater than John the Baptist. So I'd say that puts him up there pretty high. He was a great preacher. He was very bold, very courageous. If you read some there in just a few chapters before this, you'll see that John challenged the morals of King Herod. Now, we live in a day where, especially today, if you're some sort of a reporter, some sort of a news person, if you want to say anything you want to say about anybody, you can do it, and it doesn't matter. But it wasn't that way in those days. The king held your life in his hands. You didn't just say things about the king, but here's John the Baptist. He pointed out, hey, king, you're not living right. You're practicing some wrong things, and he pointed out his sin. And I think about that. Can you imagine telling the king that he's living in sin, living in adultery, you're not right with God? If you did that even today, which you can get by with it, but I'll guarantee you if you do that with people in leadership today, do it with the president, he's probably not going to invite you by the White House. I doubt they'll ask you to come open Congress in prayer or something like that. It's not going to happen. But in John's day, the least thing that would happen to you for saying something against the king would you could expect to land in prison. And that's where he was. And now prisons, again, it's hard for us to make comparison of things because in today, prisons is sort of like being in a union. You have people who represent you and people who make sure everything's just right. And so in prisons, they protest, and in prisons they have their rights. But in Bible days, prisons was a lot different today. There was no air conditioning, there was no libraries, there was no weight rooms, there was no cable TV. It was a dingy, dark, rat-infested hole in the ground. It was a dungeon. That's what prison was. And so here's John the Baptist. This is pretty well the end of the road for him. He's living his final days in what seems to be failure, what seems to be embarrassment, and what seems to be shame. And here's the thought. And again, I'm talking about when things go wrong. Here's a man who had lived his entire life for the Lord. The Bible says that he was filled with the Spirit from his mother's womb. Now, I got saved at 10 years old, and since then, there's several areas, several directions I went that God had to straighten me out, say, no, come back this way. I don't read anything in the Bible where God ever corrected John the Baptist. Right here where John is sending his people over there, I don't read where Jesus is upset with him. He brags on him right after this. I don't read where he's up. I think it was fine with him. And so here's a man who surrendered his life to the Lord at a very young age to be God's spokesperson, to be the forerunner to the Messiah. And he's pretty well lived his entire life in the will of God. Now, no doubt he is a man, so there's no doubt he did some things wrong, but for the most part, the direction of his life was always in the right direction. And now he's spending his final days in a prison, the laughingstock of a nation. And it's not going to get better, because you're not going to read later where John was rescued from prison. Now, there's no angel to release him like Peter got and when he was there in the book of Acts. There's no earthquake going to free him like happened to Paul and Silas. He's going to die in this prison. They're going to come in and they're going to cut his head off. That's what's going to happen to him. And I read that, and again, I'm thinking my thought tonight is when things go wrong, because I like for things to go right. I don't like controversy. I don't like trouble. I don't like people stir up trouble. I just don't like those things. And doesn't mean we don't have it. I just don't like them. I like for everything to run smooth. And I would say this would probably not be a good time for someone for Oral Roberts to come along and say, something good's going to happen to you today, John, because something good wasn't going to happen to him. And I don't think he needed a copy of Joel Osteen's book, Your Best Life Now. I don't think he's looking for those things. I don't think he had it. John's life is an example for a lot of people who follow in his footsteps, who try to walk with God, but there's trouble. And so when I read these verses, verse 2 again, I'm going to read a couple verses again. To me, he's a little bit perplexed, if that's the right word. But he says, verse 2, when John had heard in the prison the works of Christ, he sent 2 of his disciples and said unto him, art thou he that should come, or do we look for another? And so don't miss what's happening here. This is John the Baptist, one of the greatest prophets, if not the greatest prophet, and he's having doubts. I talked about it a while ago. Sometime in your life, you're going to have doubts about something. It may just be doubts whether or not I should be doing what I'm doing, or doubts whether or not God's taking care of this. But here's John. He's having doubts, and so he sends his disciples with this message. He said, hey, go out there to that guy that we thought that was the Messiah. He's my cousin. Now, I don't think John's mad here. I just think he's perplexed. He's confused. He doesn't know what to do. And so he says, he's my cousin. His name's Jesus. So go out there and ask him if he really is the Messiah. Or ask him if we should be looking for someone else. So he's having doubts, and he wants to know if this Jesus is who he claimed to be. And then I think to myself, was there ever a time in John's ministry when he knew for a fact that Jesus was the Messiah? Sure there was. If you'll remember, I don't remember the chapter, but there was a time a little bit before this when John was out preaching and had a lot of folks there with him, following him, and he looked up and saw Jesus coming. He said, behold, the Lamb of God which taketh away the sins of the world. He had no doubts then. He knew exactly who he was. So why does he have doubts now? Because the world's upside down right now. Most of our doubts come when everything falls apart. When everything's going good, we don't have near as many doubts. It's hard for Satan to get in there and bring doubts to our mind. But when things start falling apart, when troubles come and times get tough, Satan can get in there and he can get us to begin doubting a lot of things. And John's used to being in better circumstances. Now, when I read about what he lived like, he said he ate locusts and wild honey, lived in the wilderness. I don't know if that's better or not, but for John it seemed to be better, a lot better than that prison for him. And so he envisioned for himself things were going to end a little bit better than this. I don't think when he decided to follow the Lord, I don't think God told him ahead of time, hey, John, by the way, here in a few years, we're going to have your head cut off. You're going to get to go to jail for doing what's right, and they're going to cut your head off. I don't think he told him that. So he's in a kind of a valley here. He doesn't see any mountaintops around him, and prison was not part of the plan. And so what he's saying here when he sends these men out, he's in essence, he's saying, Jesus, if you're really the Messiah, then why am I here? You ever do that? You ever get in a bad situation, things happen, and you say, Lord, if you really care for me, why is this happening? And again, I picked John, hey, Lord, surely this was not part of the script. Surely this was not what you had planned for me. So why is everything happening this way? But it was part of the plan. But then I think a little twist to that is, and it seems like I'm always talking to you and I who are getting older. And I just feel like a lot of people that I've seen down through the years as they got older, things have changed. So this is not exactly what was going on with John, but this is an angle where I see that happens a lot. A lot of Christians, a lot of believers, they live for God for years, and they see God work in their lives, and they see God work in the church. They experience what I would call some glory days. Some really good times, and really things really go well, and God's really blessing, and maybe in their family, maybe a lot of people get saved and so on. And they have ups and they have downs, but through them they learn and they grow, and they sort of roll with the punches. But as time goes on, we start to slow down spiritually. And that excitement starts to fade. And we hear a preacher like this preacher that was here last week that couldn't stand still, and we think, man, he got too much energy. I don't want no part of that stuff. He's too excited about everything, and our excitement kind of wanes, and our freshness fades, and our vision for what God can do and what God can use us for, it kind of diminishes, and our attitude weakens. And I've seen this through the years, so I can say this, and I'm not going to use names, but I've kind of even heard people say a lot of these things, and we've seen it all before. Yeah, new converts, they come and they go. Some make it, some don't. That is true, but when you think of it that way and you say it that way, it's just saying, ho-hum, You don't know about these things. And yeah, people, they transfer in and out, and you don't know what's going to go on. Man, we've sung this song. I know this song. We've sung it a million times. And preacher's preaching. I know what this illustration is. I've heard this illustration before. And a missionary comes in and he shows his slide. You say, that's nice scenery, nice country. It looks like maybe he's got a burden for those people, but nothing stirs us. Nothing really gets us anymore. And we say, well, yeah, we've had a lot of folks baptized this last year. That's good, but were they real decisions? We'll see. We'll see if it's real or not. And all of that is true, but it's the way we look at it. If we look at it, it's like we're looking at everything from a negative side. And then it gets worse. I mean, you have people, so, what in the world's wrong with our sound system, preacher? Can't hear a thing in this church anymore. That you people don't know how to adjust the sound, and we get sour about everything. I don't like that. I don't like that new preacher you got helping us out. I don't like that new assistant. I don't like that new Sunday school teacher. And you'd think sooner or later they'd get the temperature right in this place. I'm just thinking of things I've heard down through the years. And what happens is we find ourselves on a downhill grade, and the victories and the mountaintops of yesterday that we thought would just take us right on in, we didn't quite get there. They didn't quite lead us all the way to heaven, and now we fell into a valley. And sometimes you can see, and I could name you so many names, so many families. I'll not do that, but families that start out so good, they don't end up quite the way you imagined. Some of them fall apart. I thought of a family. I don't even know how many kids was in that family. I remember the dad and the mom, and the dad seemed so much when he got saved, so much surrender to God, so much was going to happen. In a few months, maybe a year, he started to slide, and he slid more. Today, none of his family's got anything to do with God. He's gone. He's went on. I assume he really was saved, so he's in heaven today. But those victories, it never happened. And so it's like the glory days of the church. They're short-lived, and sometimes you hear people say that, yeah, I remember our church used to be, but it's been generation now, and it don't look like it's ever going to be like that again. And that's true for a lot of places. And the fact is, if you're saved, people will let you down. And I know people who say, listen, I'll never trust anybody again. Well, that just makes life miserable. It's better to trust people and be let down than to have no faith in anybody. And so we get cynical, and we become kind of doubt-minded. And that's sort of where John was. He had put so much confidence in what Christ was going to do, and yet he didn't see any of it happening. And really, when you read this story, I guess some people say it ought to be kind of frustrating for us, and because this is a great man, but it's kind of comforting to me, because to know that a man of this stature, a man as great as John the Baptist, in a time of tough circumstances, in a time of depression, to know that he had doubts, then that tells me that Wes the Baptist is not so strange when he has doubts. He's not, maybe there's something, that maybe I'm not a spiritual freak because I have low times and things that get you discouraged sometimes. And if John the Baptist has doubts, then we're probably going to have some of our own. And so I would say this: if you've been saved very long at all, you can probably think of times that you went through doubts. Maybe you doubt God's love. Lord, if you love me, why do I have to go through this? And we might not say it that way, but that's what's in our mind. And and a lot of things happen, we would say that. Or maybe we doubt his power. God, can't you fix this situation? Sometimes we doubt his justice. We see things happen, and God doesn't seem to straighten it out. And I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of things I wish God would just zap some things in this world. I don't know a better way to say it. I just wish he'd just say, okay, I'm gonna stop this right now and just go ahead and zap it and fix it, everything. But he doesn't do that. But sometimes we think, God, where's your justice? And sometimes we even think, Lord, I don't think you are coming back. It don't look like everything's ever going to change. And I know you promised, but are you going to come in our lifetime? And I still think he's going to. But I'm getting older. So maybe he's not going to come in my lifetime, but he is going to come. And then sometimes we even doubt God's man. We doubt God's preacher. I think now, down through the years, you folks haven't been here this long, but years ago, if we had a preacher here at Faith Baptist Church, if they lasted a year, they was doing pretty good. They just slipped through and they was out. So you'd hear people say, well, I wonder how long this one's going to last. and that wasn't too good. And in fact, I don't know if I ever told you about when Brother Price resigned. When he announced he was going to resign, and he was back at the back shaking hands that day, and one of the older ladies, she come out and she shook his hand. She said, "I'm really worried that we're going to get somebody in here that can't preach, and somebody that we really don't like." And he said, "Now don't worry." He called her by name. He said, "Don't worry." He said, "The Lord will work it out." She said, "Yeah, sure. That's what you guys said last time." Some of you get that. So they doubt. Yeah, sometimes they even doubt the preacher. You never know. And sometimes people doubt their salvation. And the devil's behind all of that. And in fact, I would say almost everybody who's saved at some time has probably doubted their salvation. Now, maybe not if you got saved later in life. If you get saved young, and I had this conversation last night with a young lady, but you get saved young. For one, I got saved when I was 10. I don't remember anything I ever did when I was 10 anymore. I can't remember. This young lady got saved when she was 6, or she made a profession when she's 6. But what do you know? Can you remember anything when you're 6? I don't remember. If I don't rehearse and say things and remind myself, my granddaughter, her little brother died when she was 2 years old. Now, the only memories she has is what we keep talking about. She doesn't really have any memories. It's gone. But we talk about it enough, and she says things enough that she's 16 now, and so he would have been 15 or 14. I don't remember. I guess 14. So she would have remembered some things had it been older, but no, she was young. She forgot those things, but we rehearse them. And that's the way it is when you get saved when you're young. A lot of people struggle with that because then as they get older, I don't know how I felt. I don't know if I really meant it now. Well, I don't know what I meant I don't remember when I went to school. I don't know if I meant it when I took a test. I might have just did it. I don't know. And so we have doubts. And so all believers have some sort of doubts. And usually those doubts come when you're in some sort of a valley, some sort of a prison. What might be your prison? Some people it's the financial prison, going through financial trouble. Some it's physical sickness. Some it's family trouble. Some it's just disappointments. It's discouragement. Some get completely to the point of depression. Some are going through marital conflict, and all those things have a tendency to bring doubts in our mind. And if John the Baptist, who is greater than any of us, could have doubts, then surely we're going to from time to time. And maybe you thought, Lord, what's going on? I mean, I don't know what to do. I've tried to be faithful. I've tried to serve you. I've tried to tithe. I've tried to do that. And I know I'm not perfect, but at least I'm trying. So what are you going to do? And we're actually saying the same thing John did. Are you the one we're looking for, or do I need to look for another? But let me give you a simple reason for why John was perplexed, as I call it. You see, he had doubts because Jesus did not live up to his preconceived notion. He had ideas in his mind already of what Jesus should be and what he should do. And every one of us do that. We think in a certain situation, this is what God should do. And that's all right. And when I get in a certain situation, I pray and I say, Lord, I think you need to do this. But I have to be willing to admit that, Lord, I really don't know everything. This is what I think. With the ability you give me to think, here's what I see that needs to be done. Now, he may do something different, and I need to be accepting of that. But John at this time was not. And he had formed a mold in his mind that Jesus should fit into. And when he didn't fit in it, now John's starting to have doubts. And that's what happens to us. You see, he didn't have the big picture. He had kind of what I call an incomplete revelation of who God is. He was a great prophet. He did a good job leading, but he didn't understand that Jesus had to come the first time to suffer and to bleed and to die on the cross. And the next time he was going to come and he set up his kingdom. All that didn't sink into him. He still trusted Christ, but that wasn't sinking in yet. And so he had doubts because he couldn't see the big picture. But I like the way Jesus responds to his doubts. Because it shows me that when I have doubts, God understands. He's not mad. He's not going to crack me over the head. Sometimes when your kids get out of line and they question, that you thump them. Well, God doesn't thump us when we question things. he tries to help us. And in verse 4 and 5 here, he says, then Jesus answered, said to him, go and show John. These are the men they sent out there. He said, go show John those things which you do hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk. The lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. Now, why would that be important? Well, because in Isaiah chapter number 35, written hundreds of years earlier, here's what it was said was going to happen when the Messiah comes. It says, then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf shall be unstopped. Then shall the lame man leap as an hart, and the tongue of the dumb sing. And he knew John knew those verses. And so he said, tell John what you see. So they went back and told John what they see, and that was all it took. John understood. He understood, yeah, this is the Messiah. And he knew that these were the credentials that John would recognize. So I'm saying he used some tact in the way he answered him. He was, but there was also some tenderness, because he said in verse number 6, he said, and blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me. What's he saying, John? You just have to trust me. I don't explain everything to everybody, and he doesn't explain everything to me. He doesn't explain everything to you. He says, but I need you to trust me. I need you not to be angry with me. I need you not to doubt me, even when you don't understand. I just need you to trust me. And you see, John didn't have the big picture, and most of the time, you and I don't have the big picture either. When you're going through troubles, and maybe it's sickness, maybe it's family troubles, maybe it's other things, we don't see the big. Why does cancer come and take away some of our best? Why do accidents rob us of our loved ones? Why do children die? I get these questions a lot. Why can't my son talk? Someone would say, and why is there preachers out there that are doing a great job and being used of God, and all of a sudden they fall and they take half the church with them and destroy lives? And how can a child that we raised in church make a 180-degree turn and just completely leave God? How can God allow my spouse to leave me? I'm thinking of questions that hit people every day, and because of it, they start to doubt. Different areas. They doubt, and a lot of times they doubt whether or not God cares. And those who think that they're trying to walk with God, they think they're spiritual, we try to find answers to those things. When things come, we try to find some cause. And of course, you'll remember Job. When Job went through stuff, he had 3 friends. They helped him figure out everything wrong. And so they're looking for a cause. They looked in the wrong place. And so we look for some root sin, or we look for somebody to blame. But sometimes the search for those answers leads us some dead-end streets, some places we've probably been better off not going down. And I read this line, and it fit real well with what's going on here in John's life. So I don't know who said it, but I wrote it down because I think it's something we should always remember. When you don't know why, you trust the who. I don't know why things, but I can trust God. And that's the way he had. Simple faith believes, yes, God is good. And yes, God loves me unconditionally, and he would never hurt me. Now, that doesn't explain what I'm going through, but I do trust those things. Simple faith remembers that I don't see the big picture, and God does. And one day soon we'll stand before him in heaven, and he'll unfold our life, and then we'll see it. I see that now. I see now why you've had put those colors over here, and I see now why you kind of put those dark areas, those bland things over in this area of my life, and it's the only way it could have worked. But we don't see that now. God sees it, but we don't. And so we'll be able to say, all those things really fit together. Now, my mom and my sister, they used to enjoy puzzles. Puzzles drive me crazy. I'm no good at puzzles. In fact, a second grade puzzle I can almost not put together. I'm just no good at puzzles. People sit you sit in hospital rooms. If you go to a lot of waiting rooms, they got puzzles. And they would sit there and put them things together, and like there was nothing to it. And I remember once they was trying, I think Mom was in rehab, and they had a puzzle with curved edges. And in my mind, I told them, I said, whoever designed this, they should be shot. That's what they just ought to shoot somebody that makes stuff like that. But I sit there and I stare at those pieces, and they would laugh at me. And they would put in 15, 20 pieces, and I've still got one piece in my hand. I haven't figured out where it goes. I can't find nothing. And that was the edge pieces. But I remember one time Mom told me, she said, look at the picture. She had the box over there. And I was looking at all the pieces. She was looking at the picture, and she was just snapping them pieces in there and going through all that. And could I tell you, from down here on this earth where we live, all we see is the mixed up pieces. I can't see the whole picture. I like to relate it like sometimes, every now and then we get in a plane and we fly somewhere. It is amazing when you get up so high, you can see things. You can see a few miles down, you can see people coming. I can tell people, hey, be careful, there's a big truck sitting down here sideways in the road. They can't see that where they're at, but I can see it from way up there. And that's the way it is. And so we just see pieces down here, but someday, our loving Father, He's going to put them all together for us, and then, and only then, we're going to see the big picture. We'll understand everything. So what do we do until then? I started singing, we sang tonight Face to Face. Right across the page was a song, Until Then. We started singing it. I started to tonight, but I wasn't sure I had enough voice for it. But until then, we just keep our eyes on Christ. In that prison, John couldn't see Jesus. He couldn't see what was, so all he could really see was the circumstances around him. And so it was for Peter. You remember when he was walking on the water and he got to looking around at all the things around him and he started sinking. He got his eyes back on Jesus, he was all right. And so my thought is today, are we having troubles? We will. If you're not, you'll have them. Are you in a prison? In a valley? Remember this thought. When you don't know the why, trust the who. Whether it's financial, family, health, emotional, when doubts start to creep in, when you get tired of people letting you down, stop asking why and just go back to saying, Lord, I'm following you. Doesn't matter what's going on, because He's still on the throne. He's still in charge of everything. Believe it or not, He's still running this country. Don't look like it sometimes. Sometimes I'll be honest with you, sometimes when I'm praying, I remind Him who looks like is in charge around here, and I remind Him if He wants to go ahead and zap some of them, I'm okay with that. And He doesn't do it my way, but He's still in charge of things, and He is going to accomplish His will in His good time, so we can trust Him. So things will go wrong, but keep your eyes on the Lord. Keep focused on Him. Now, with all that said, let's go ahead if you've got your prayer list there somewhere. And for those who are on YouTube, thanks for tuning in with us. And for those of you who are here, if you got a prayer list, let's go ahead and go to prayer. And remember to pray for our service Sunday. Remember, we got 3 Sunday school classes going now, and I'm trying to teach one of them. And in my personal opinion, I told my wife I thought Sunday class was probably the most pathetic Sunday school class I've ever been a part of. And so I'm going to try to do better this week. So come back. I still encourage you, go to Brad and Brian's, because I know how many hours, I know they can put in a lot better hours and they do things better. But if you're over here, we'll have a class anyhow. But there's 3 of them on 1 John, so come see what's going on. And pray for a good service, a good full house on Sunday, that the Lord will meet with us in a special way. Let's go to prayer.